is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes,
He's going for it.
Oh my goal! What a goal!
And that will do it. One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and thank you to former Philadelphia Union player Taylor Washington for that lovely handball that he gifted the Philadelphia Union. And thank you to CJ Sapong for not scoring against the Philadelphia Union and the Union's 1-0 victory over Nashville to see the Philadelphia Union go into second place. Man, it's so crazy to see this late in the season, the Philadelphia Union are in second place, where so many people back in July, back in August, oh man, are the Union going to make the playoffs? Are we even going to have a home game? Well, it's possible. It is possible that the Philadelphia Union could have 2 home games. You know, everything is in their hands right now. All they got to do is win out. They win out, they finish in second place. New England, they have the number 1 seed. They are the Supporters' Shield winners. So, look, if the Union win out, they have the 2 home games in the playoffs. If they win the first one, then they get another home game. And then they're going to have to go up to Gillette Stadium and play New England. Unless, like the Philadelphia Union last season, where when we play New England, we get knocked out right away in the first round after we won the Supporters' Shield. Could that happen to New England this season? Yeah, sure it can. And, man, I kind of wish I had my phone in front of me because before this episode, I think it was probably back in early September, late August, when everybody's complaining, I looked up stats of teams that had won the Supporters' Shield and then how they did in the playoffs. And, yeah, I mean, not a ton of teams have won the Supporters' Shield and won MLS Cup. So there's no guarantee. Just because New England's running away, blowing every single team out this season, does not mean that New England's going to win the Supporters' Shield this season. And look, I don't care what New England does. I don't care how many points they get. I don't care if they break the MLS record. I just care about the Philadelphia Union finishing in second place on the season. Like I said, just who would have thought that the Philadelphia Union would have finished in second place? I mean, obviously the season's not over, but the schedule's in our favor, I would say. Look, we go to Toronto on Wednesday. We should get a win. But, you know, it's Toronto, a place where we haven't played the best the past couple years. Now, I know it's so hard to compare the Union team of now compared to the teams of the past. Then we have Cincinnati at home on Sunday, and then we go to New York City for our last game of the season. And, yeah, we know we don't play good in New York, and it's never a good time, especially where those games, I feel like we've had, like, 2 or 3 games at New York City for the last game of the season, or they've even come to Subaru Park for the last game of the season, and like those games have always been so crucial, and we've choked and either missed the playoffs or got like dead last in the playoffs. So I don't know. The next 2 games, Toronto and Cincinnati, should be wins in my opinion. New York City game, that's where it gets a little bit tricky. But look, I believe in this team, and this is a team that not a lot of people had a lot of faith in. Like I said, back in August, back in July, where people thought, yeah, the Union would barely get into the playoffs. So they sit in second place with 49 points, tied with Nashville, who also have 49 points. But MLS, they go off of wins, and the Union have 13 wins, while Nashville, they have 11 wins. So it's tight here in the East. And then you have Orlando, who have 46 points, because I'm recording this podcast while Orlando and New England are playing, and I forget who else is playing. I think 2 other games are happening today too. So yeah, some stats that I give you guys, you know, after you guys listen to this podcast, they might not be up to date because I'm giving you guys some stats while I'm recording the podcast. But look, Philadelphia Union in second place. All they have to do is win out, and they will be in second place going into the playoffs. So let's hope for that. I don't think the Union will finish third overall in the Western Conference since Colorado and Sporting Kansas City both won their games yesterday against Colorado beat Portland and Sporting Kansas City beat Seattle. And we'll talk about that Seattle Sporting Kansas City game here in a little bit. A spoiler alert, something in that game is blunder of the week. You guys might know what I'm talking about already. But yeah, enough ranting about the Philadelphia Union being in second place. But man, I'm just like so excited that the Union are in second place. That game against Nashville is the biggest regular season game of the season so far. And the Union delivered. But we'll talk about that game here in a little bit. I do want to talk about some MLS news. There isn't a ton of news that I want to talk about, so let's just get straight into the one talking point that I want to talk about. And that is the MLSPA have released the player salaries for the 2021 season during the week, if you guys missed it. So Carlos Vela of LAFC leads all MLS players with $6.3 million, followed by Javier Hernandez Chicharito of LA Galaxy, earning $6 million in the 2021 season. Gonzalo Higuain of Inter Miami is third on the list with $5.7 million. In fourth is Alejandro Pozuelo with $4.6 million. And then in fifth place is Atlanta United's Luis Araujo with $3.9 million. And look, it's no surprise that the five highest earners are all attacking players. And the Philadelphia Union don't even come close to what those teams are paying. And I do think it's interesting when you look at just how much money some of these MLS teams are paying, where back in, I want to say May, when the initial salary was released by the Players Association, LA Galaxy, I believe, were in third place. And now you look in September, since the summer transfer window has closed, some teams have brought in some more players. Some teams have let go of some players. In LA Galaxy, they come in first for the 2021 season, followed by Atlanta United, who also move up by 2. Going down 1 is Toronto, who are in third place. Going down 3, this is so surprising. Inter Miami, they have cut some salary, which is good on them because we know the dumpster fire Miami is, but still they're paying some guys on that team way too much money, especially Gonzalo Higuain. In fifth is LAFC. Sixth is New York City FC. Seventh, Columbus. Eighth, Sporting Kansas City. Ninth, Seattle. 10th, Cincinnati, which, hey, props to Cincinnati. They were the fifth highest spenders in May, and now in September, they're all the way down to 10th. So they're slowly but surely cutting salary. 11th is Chicago. 12th is Nashville. 13th is Montreal. 14th is Real Salt Lake. 15th is Austin. 16 is Dallas. 17 Portland. 18 Minnesota. 19 Orlando. 20 New England. 21 DC United. 22 Houston. 23 San Jose. 24 Vancouver. 25 Philadelphia Union. 26 New York Red Bulls. And 27 Colorado Rapids. And it is funny, too, looking at this list, the only team that didn't move positions from May to September is the Philadelphia Union. And I do think it's interesting, too, where you look, the team that's in third place in the West is Colorado, and the team that's in second in the East, Philadelphia Union. Those are the lowest spending teams. And they're in the bottom 3 of the lowest spending teams. And New York Red Bulls, I mean, they've been hot lately, too, where you look, where I don't think anybody was giving New York Red Bulls a couple of weeks ago any chance of making the playoffs, and suddenly they've got red hot, and they have 43 points, and they have a game in hand. So, I mean, the New York Red Bulls, everybody wrote these guys off, and these guys are spending less money, where you compare to May to September. Yeah, they've spent even less money. They've let go of some players, and New York Red Bulls are playing really, really well. They haven't lost a game since Columbus back on September 14th. So they have 8 games undefeated. And Now, suddenly, this is a team, if they can close it out, make it into the playoffs. This is a team that not many teams are going to want to see in the playoffs. This is a team I don't think the Philadelphia Union would want to see in the playoffs, where I know the last couple of years the Philadelphia Union have had New York Red Bulls number, but look, when teams get hot going to the playoffs, and like I said, September 18th is the last time the New York Red Bulls, 14th, have lost a game. When teams are that hot, you don't want to play them going into the playoffs, and I don't see why New York Red Bulls can't keep winning. This game for New York Red Bulls coming up on Wednesday against DC United, that is a playoff game right there, because both of those teams are fighting for a playoff spot. Then New York Red Bulls have Montreal, both teams fighting for a playoff spot. And then New York Red Bulls have Atlanta again, another team fighting for a playoff spot. And then Nashville, they end the season with, they go down to Nashville. I think Nashville don't have to worry about fighting for a playoff spot. I think they'll make it. It's just about where will they make it. But yeah, I mean, that's 4 games right there that the Red Bulls have, that they play teams that are either fighting for the playoffs or they are in the playoffs right now. So yeah, it's going to be do or die for the New York Red Bulls. But yeah, eight games unbeaten. It's a pretty good second half of the season the New York Red Bulls are having, and to see them cut salary from May to September, and they're getting these kind of results, I guess that means that the New York Red Bulls are doing something right. Where if you go ahead and look at the Philadelphia Union, their top 5 highest paid players are number 1, Jamiro Montero with $1.4 million. Number 2, Ali Bedoya making $1 million. And third is Kasper Shabelko making $916,000. And fourth is Sergio Santos with $728,000. In fifth place is Andre Blake with $650,000. Now, looking at these numbers, where if you guys haven't seen this list, you guys can just go to the MLSPA's website and look at all these numbers. One thing that I found super interesting is Stuart Finley is making $425,000 compared to Jack Elliott, who's making $340,000. And Jack Elliott plays, and I'll bring up some numbers for Jack Elliott a little bit later, but this is a guy who, with the season he's having this season, where Stuart Finley is making more money than him and his agent are going to be like, hey, look at these stats, what we're doing for your team, what we're doing compared to other MLS center backs. Yeah, I think we deserve a pay grade. But besides that, I'm surprised that Jack Elliott's still here in MLS. I'm surprised that he hasn't been called up to the Scotland national team, where I don't think they have the best center backs in the world, where Stuart Finley has played for Scotland at one point or another, and he's not getting call-ups anymore. And I guess that's what happens when players go to MLS, right? They don't get called up, they stop getting called up. But no, I don't think that's the stigma anymore, because we see plenty of players in MLS get called up to their national team in Europe. Look, Daniel Gazdag is one of them who gets called up constantly to Hungary. So just for whatever reason, Scotland don't want to call up Jack Elliott, but he's having a great season. And I think Jack Elliott could probably do a good job for a lower level team in the Premier League. He can definitely play for a championship team in England. Could he go and play in Scotland? Sure, but who really wants to go to play in Scotland unless it's for Rangers or Celtic? And I don't think Jack Elliott would want to leave the Philadelphia Union if he's not guaranteed consistent playing time at one of these clubs in Europe. So it's kind of my thought. That's one thing that stands out on me is Stuart Finley makes more than Jack Elliott. Davo, he's making $253,000 while he's here on loan. He's played one game. Now, granted, it's not a ton of money when you compare it to what other teams are playing players. It's not a ton of money when you compare it to what players are making in Europe. So, I mean, I don't have an issue with that. It's just weird that Davo's not playing. And again, I'll bring up Davo a little bit later in the podcast. But another thing I thought that was interesting is Brad Guzan's the highest paid goalkeeper in MLS at $805,000, where Andre Blake's making $650,000. That's second highest in MLS. So for Andre Blake not to be the highest paid goalkeeper in MLS, where you compare Andre Blake to Brad Guzan, Andre Blake means so much more to the Philadelphia Union than what Brad Guzan means to Atlanta United. So I don't know. Maybe like I know Andre Blake just signed a contract extension with the Philadelphia Union, but to see him not even get $1 million yet, it's crazy to me. So credit to him for not hitting up the Union saying, "Hey, look, you got to pay me double what I was making. You got to pay me more than Brad Guzan because look, these numbers are public to these players and everything." So Andre Blake definitely had an idea of how much money Brad Guzan was making, how much Eloy Room was making, Matt Turner, which, by the way, those guys aren't even in the top 5 for goalkeeper. So both of those guys, I got to imagine, are going to be getting a pay raise sooner rather than later for Columbus and New England, respectively. But yeah, that is the information that the MLSPA has released. And like I said, just go on the website if you guys want to dive into the numbers a little bit more. And that's just the things that stood off to me when I saw that the MLSPA announced. So let's go ahead and talk about the Philadelphia Union versus Nashville game. Like we all know, that game ended 1-0. And I've got to give credit to Jim Curtin for throwing out the same formation, the same lineup that he threw out versus Minnesota on Wednesday night. Even though the Union lost that game 3-2, I thought the Union, they caused a lot of issues against Minnesota with the 2 10s being Jamiro Montero and Daniel Gazdag. They found so much space in that game. And on the night, they created 18 chances, which is a ton of chances to create something that the Union haven't created a lot back in August when people were saying, oh, the Union, like, we're done for. We can't create chances. But now you look, Minnesota, 18 chances created against Nashville, 14 chances created. So the Union are creating chances. And yeah, you would want to see more than one goal. You would want to see them consistently score 2+ goals. But, that's not always the case with this team. But in Minnesota, yeah, they scored 2 goals. But I don't think the issue for the team, I don't think it was the 4-3-2-1 formation. I mean, look, on the night they had 3 individual mistakes in that game, and it cost them. But I think every team has one of those games once a season where you just have a whole bunch of defensive mistakes, and then you hope that the next game you can bounce off of it. And that's exactly what the Philadelphia Union did against Nashville. Jacob Glesnes had one early mistake in the second half. Luckily, Nashville weren't able to capitalize on it. But that's the only mistake that really stood out to me in the game against Nashville. And you go ahead and look. Why did the 4-3-2-1 work so well against Minnesota? Well, I think, one, it's because Minnesota didn't really press the Union, which gave the Union plenty of time on the ball. And they were able to get Jamiro Montero and Gazdag into space. 2, I think Kasper Schebelker's hold-up play was really, really, really good on the night. And when you run this formation, that's what you want from your striker. You don't want him dropping deep because you're playing with one striker. And now if Kasper's dropping all the way to the halfway line, if he's dropping back into the defensive half for the Union collecting the ball, now you don't have a target man where you can ping the ball up and let him chest it down because Kasper's coming and collecting it. He didn't really do that against Minnesota, nor did he do it against Nashville. And point number 3, I thought Ali and Leon, they were just able to make those direct runs at the defense, which was key for the Union to just get that space open for Jamiro Montero and Daniel Gazdag. And it's exactly what we saw them do against Nashville. And why else do I believe it worked against Nashville last night? I think it's because, yeah, Nashville, like Minnesota, aren't a team that's going to come out and press you too much. Nashville, they like to sit deep, and especially when they're on the road. They love sitting deep on the road. You go ahead and look at all the ties that Nashville has this season. And so it's no surprise to anybody that Nashville was coming into that game to sit deep. And what else does Nashville like to do? They like to foul teams a lot. And by the way, they had 16 fouls against the Union Saturday night, which is a ton of fouls. So, I mean, look. And this formation allowed the Union to find that outlet pass to Jose Martinez, who was then able to find Ali or Leon making those runs at the back line of Nashville. Or then Jose Martinez would just split the midfielders of Nashville and either find Jamiro Montero or Daniel Gazdag because nobody was really pressing Jose Martinez besides the 2 strikers. And once Jose Martinez dribble past those guys. He was able to take his time, pick his head up, and split the midfield for Nashville. And the Union were able to go at players one-on-one with Jameer Montero, Daniel Gazdag, Ali Bedoya, Leon Flock. They were able to pass the ball into Kasper Schebelker, who was able to hold up the ball when Jamiro and Ali and Daniel Gazdag were making those runs in behind. So I thought the formation worked really, really well against Nashville. And look, you saw it early on in the game with Gazdag, Miro, and Kasper. They all linked up really well. Miro played the ball towards Daniel Gazdag, who headed the ball down to Kasper, who just miskicked the ball. Should have been 1-0, but yeah, I guess it was a hard shot for Kasper to take. And Leon Flock then later on in the first half plays a really, really good low cross into Daniel Gazdag on the ground, who made good contact. But Nashville, they were able to block the shot. And we saw this formation against Minnesota and Nashville, like I said. And it was the complete opposite of what we saw against DC United in New England back in August. And I think this is definitely something the Philadelphia Union could explore with going forward. But this is what Jim Curtin had to say with the 4-3-2-1 going forward.
It'll be a game-by-game kind of adjustment. Obviously, we had to go to the formation not because we wanted to, but because we had just the personnel that we had available. But now as some strikers come back, again, it just adds another layer of flexibility for us to where in an instant we can change formations on the fly and not lose much. So really good players that adapted and adjusted. And again, it's good to see Daniel and Jamiro both flying at this part of the season, which is key, and Kasper as well.
This is tough for me because I really like this formation. And I believe as things stand right now, this is how you get the most out of Jameer Montero and Daniel Gazdag. They have a really good understanding on the runs each other are going to make in this formation. And I think this formation allows Daniel Gazdag to push a little bit higher up into the 18-yard box, where Jameer Montero, he's far up, but he's not pushing into the 18-yard box. He's letting Gazdag do that work. And look, if Gazdag can push up into the 18-yard box where, look, we saw him win that header, head the ball down to Kasper Schebelker. These two can link up really well. I mean, running this formation, you want your striker and the 210s playing really, really well. And so far, the last two games, we've seen it work really well with Kasper, Daniel, and Jameer Montero. Where, look, if the Union get caught on the counterattack, if Gazdag gets caught pushing a little bit too high up, I think that we have enough cover in the midfield where we're not going to get counterattacked as bad as you would think we would, because Leon Flock, Jose Martinez, Ali Bedoya, they're not pushing up as far as Gazdag, Miro, and Kasper Schebelker are. So, look, with Jameer Montero not pushing up into the 18-yard box, that allows more cover in the midfield. Now you have four midfielders with Jamiro not pushing up so far. So if a team like Nashville or whoever you decide to use this formation up against, if they win the ball back and try to counterattack you, I think you have more than enough cover where I think you'll do just fine. And Nashville really couldn't get anything going against the Union when they were in this formation. And yeah, I think it was pretty evident when you look in the first half, 0 shots for Nashville. I mean, the Philadelphia Union completely dominated in the first half and just dominated in this game. Now, of course, you want to play the 4-4-2 diamond because you like having Sergio Santos out there getting in behind. He's the only striker that gets in behind. He's a different striker compared to what Corey Burke and Kasper Schebelker are. But again, you go back and you see the last two games, what you're getting out of Miro, Daniel Gazdag, and Kasper Schebelker. It's really hard seeing how you can get the best out of them in the 4-4-2 diamond, where it hasn't looked the best this season when we play in the 4-4-2 diamond with Jamiro and Daniel Gazdag rotating from the 8 to the 10, where both of them know, okay, in this formation, we're both playing as a 10. And it just seems like they understand each other's runs. They understand where to find the space on the field in this formation better than how they find it in the 4-4-2 diamond. And I think if you try to run this 4-3-2-1 formation, I don't think this formation is best suited for Sergio's abilities, where Sergio is definitely not good as a lone striker. He's good with having a striker like Kasper Schmeichel who can hold up the ball, play Sergio in from behind, where this formation, you're looking at a striker to hold the ball up, where I do think Corey Burke could and probably would thrive in this formation. And I got to imagine where, look, Cincinnati, yeah, you want to win that game, but we saw what we did in Cincinnati against Cincinnati with the players we threw out there. Where could we see the Philadelphia Union line up in a 4-3-2-1 and let Corey start up top while Kasper gets a little bit of rest? Because that is something that Jim said after the Minnesota game and after the game against Nashville, that these guys are getting a lot of minutes in their legs, and it's something that's a little bit concerning to Jim Curtin. So I think we saw the youth players were able to handle Cincinnati with no problems, and maybe Jim decides, okay, look, let's go ahead and go to a 4-3-2-1 and throw out some young players again against Cincinnati and get 3 points. But, we have Toronto, so we'll talk about Cincinnati here a little bit in the coming days. But it is good to see that Jim Curtin has the flexibility with different formations, because what we would see Jim Curtin do in the past, he would go from a 4-4-2 diamond to a 4-2-3-1 formation. So to see them go to a 4-3-2-1, it's very, very promising to see the Philadelphia Union can just change tactically on the fly. And if we can continue to get Daniel Gazdag, Jameer Montero playing well in this formation and not in the 4-4-2, I think it's something you got to consider just using going forward. Yeah, you want Sergio Santos being out there, especially when you're paying him in the top 5 highest paid earners at the Philadelphia Union. You want that guy on the field. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not a ton of money when you compare it to what other teams in MLS are paying players. But look, you brought in Daniel Gazdag. You paid more for Daniel Gazdag than what you paid for Sergio Santos when you brought him here in 2019. So it's like, do you want to get the best out of Jameer Montero and Gazdag, or do you want to throw Sergio Santos out there because he's getting paid X amount of money? I don't know, and I don't think that's a part of Jim's thinking at all, that, okay, we need to throw Sergio out there because we're paying him this much money. I think the 4-4-2 does work, but I do like what I'm seeing out of the 4-3-2-1 with the understanding between Jameer, Gazdag, and Kasper. But I want to play one more clip with Jim talking about just, look, how he thought the 4-3-2-1 played in the first half, how he thought the 4-3-2-1 just played overall.
For this game, I thought the first half, the way we moved the ball, our sharpness, just doing the simple things. That's what we said in the pregame talk. I said to everybody to put in a Philadelphia Union performance, and then I added to that, do the simple things perfect. That's when we're at our best, when we do the simple things perfectly. We don't make mistakes, and I think we eliminated a lot of the mistakes tonight. And our ability to possess the ball, I agree, in the first half did wear them down quite a bit. They put a lot into the game. They were tired, but they're a great team too, and they pushed and had the better of the play in the second half. We bent a little bit, but we didn't break. And like you said, we were still able to put some spells of possession together in the second half too to tire them out a little bit.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's exactly why this formation is so intriguing, because if you have 2 10s that are good at taking players on 1v1, dribbling out of tight areas, like getting a ton of touches on the ball, then you're going to have a ton of success with this formation. And, I mean, look, you look at the first half, the Union had 61% of the possession, and they created 5 chances, while Nashville, like I said earlier, they had 0 shots in the first half. Now, we all know the Philadelphia Union, they're built to attack teams on the counter. But I always thought just bringing in Daniel Gazdag, having Jameer Montero, these are the 2 best players on the team to unlocking teams that sit deep, that like to park the bus just with their passing ability, with their dribbling ability. And you saw exactly that against Nashville, and specifically in the first half in this game. And the Philadelphia Union were very, very unfortunate not to score multiple goals in the first half, and let alone in the second half when the Union were going back to the Union and bold, hitting Nashville on the counterattack, Paxton having a chance, Kasper having multiple chances, Jameer having an attack. I mean, those three guys on the counterattack I thought were fabulous on the night in the second half, but man, just weren't able to get that second goal because there was times in the second half, especially the last 5 minutes of the game, when they're just playing long ball after long ball to Walker Zimmerman and some of their taller strikers, and you're like, yeah, please, 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 just hold on. And luckily, the Philadelphia Union were able to hold on. But a couple more points I want to bring up on this game. I think number one for me, and you guys have heard me talk about it the last couple of episodes, where I think Frank Leicht could be considered the Philadelphia Union MVP, even though he doesn't play, right? Because look, the Philadelphia Union, they scored another set piece goal this season. They scored that penalty kick against Nashville. And I don't have stats to compare to what the Philadelphia Union have done on set pieces in the previous years, but I've got to imagine that they're pretty close to setting some personal records for the number of set pieces they've scored in the regular season this season, where you look, 15 out of 43 goals this season scored by the Philadelphia Union have been on set pieces. That is 35% of their goals that they have scored on set pieces. That number is tied for the second most in MLS. New York City FC and Colorado are also tied with them. But if you look at percentages, the Philadelphia Union have the highest finishing rate in MLS on set pieces with 35%. And then defending set pieces, they've given up 9 out of 32 goals this season, which 9 of them have been conceded on set pieces, which is 28% of the goals they concede on the season, which is tied for 5th fewest in MLS. And looking at the set pieces that the Philadelphia Union scored, I mean, I always feel like the Union have a chance to score every time they get a set piece because they have big targets to aim at. They make very, very clever runs in the box off of their center backs, off of the marks when they have a free kick. They're very good at putting deliveries into the box. And they're very good at timing, okay? Jamir's faking it. Kai Wagner's faking it. Jack Elliott has taken free kicks. So, I mean, the Philadelphia Union, they, I don't know. Maybe you guys know, the people that have paid attention a lot longer than me. Does it sound like the Philadelphia Union have scored 15 goals in the past on set pieces? I want to know how close that is to setting a personal record for the Philadelphia Union. So, I mean, if there is somebody out there that knows that stat, that can find that stat, how many set piece goals the Union have scored in the regular season, I would love to see it, because I know the last 2 years when I started really, really paying attention to the Philadelphia Union, going to games in 2019, I know we would always take those corner kicks short because we were terrible at corner kicks, and now we're scoring corner kicks left and right. We're scoring free kicks, whether it's indirect or direct. Penalties, no, they've always been shaky, but Casper, he's 2 for 2, 3 for 3 on penalties, something like that this season. So 35% of the Union's goals are scored on set pieces. I'll take that, right? I will definitely take the set pieces that the Philadelphia Union are scoring this season. And actually, I think I gave you guys a wrong number where I said the Philadelphia Union have the highest finishing rate in MLS on set pieces. No, that would be incorrect. That's my bad. I was looking at the number of goals they've scored. They've scored the highest percentage of set pieces in MLS. That's what I meant to say. So, yeah, the 35% is correct. It's just they might not have the highest finishing rate in MLS. They have the highest goal scoring rate on set pieces this season at 35% in MLS, which is still really good. And look, set pieces win games, they lose you games, and thank God the Philadelphia Union are finally able to do stuff with set pieces. And like I said, I don't know. Obviously, like, the MVP has to be a player for the Philadelphia Union. You're not going to give it to a coach, but yeah, Frank Leicht has been an outstanding addition to this Philadelphia Union team. And I know Jim Curtin's talked about him in the past a little bit, just how much he's meant to this team on set pieces. And Jim loves every single one of his coaches. He always gives these guys a ton of praise. And yeah, I think that's something that a lot of Philadelphia Union fans need to pay attention to, just how good the Philadelphia Union are on set pieces. Another point I want to bring up, speaking of players that could win MVP, Jack Elliott. I know I was asked a couple episodes ago who were the top 3 MVP candidates for the Philadelphia Union. I think I said Andre Blake number 1 for sure. Then I can't remember if I said it was Leon number 2 or if it was Jack Elliott number 2. But yeah, Jack Elliott's definitely putting up a MVP type season. The game against Nashville, he had 8 clearances, 2 interceptions, 2 tackles. He won 7 out of 9 duels. This guy can take players on 1v1. I think he was 1-on-1 in dribbles too against Nashville. For a center back, I mean, he does have pretty good feet. And this guy has really good distribution. This guy always seems to be in the right place at the right time, just putting out fires that the opposition are trying to start against the Union. And like I was talking about earlier, it's like baffles my mind that Jack Elliott hasn't been caught up to the Scotland national team, that he's still playing in MLS. To see this guy be a late round pick in the MLS Super Draft, contributing this much, playing in an MVP type season for the Philadelphia Union. When team of the season comes out, I don't know if Jack Elliott's going to be one of the center backs picked. But with the season that he's having, he very, 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 very much so be considered. He better be considered for one of the 2 center back spots for a team this season, because he's 8th in MLS in successful pressures. He's 2nd in MLS in clearances. He's 6th in MLS in aerials won. He's 13th in MLS in blocks. He's 8th in MLS in completed long balls. I mean, his passing ability is so good. And look, playing out of the back, starting the attack with your center backs is become a part of the modern game of soccer. You see it all the time in Europe. And the Philadelphia Union have 2 very, very good center backs in Jacob Glesnes and Jack Elliott, who can play out of the back, play those long balls, play those diagonal balls, and start the attack with that passing ability that Jack Elliott and Jacob Glesnes possessed, where they can just bypass the midfield because the long passing is just so accurate. It gets to Casper, it gets to Sergio Santos, and Sergio is now able to get in behind that back line because Jack Elliott played such a wonderful long ball. Jacob Glesnes played such a great long ball. So I think that's one thing that a lot of people aren't really talking about, is the MVP season that Jack Elliott's having. And again, just had a very, very, very good performance against Nashville with those stats I just gave you guys. And the last thing I want to bring up is when the Philadelphia Union announced the lineup for this game, I was like, okay, the first thing I noticed was, okay, yeah, it's the same formation that they used against Minnesota. But the one thing I didn't notice was Davo wasn't on the bench. And now it looks like Anthony Fontana has taken that spot from Davo off the bench. And what does that mean for Davo's future here in the Philadelphia Union? Well, like we said, like we know, we have 3 more games left for the regular season. And I think Davo's time in Philadelphia is done. I think there's just nothing to it. I know fans want answers. Jim's been asked multiple times in press conferences, and I know fans get angry because they just want a straight up answer from Jim Curtin. And I don't think Jim Curtin's the type of manager to say, yeah, this player sucks, we should never have bought him. Jim's not that type of manager. He says there's other players ahead of Davo. That's the closest answer that we get now. Whatever you guys want to do with that answer, have at it. And I think I've said it before, if you guys have listened to all the episodes this season, where I think Gabriel Silva, the guy from Palmeiras, the striker that the Union were close to signing, but then Palmeiras said, yeah, we want a sell-on clause of 20%. The Union said, no way. And then they went to Davo next. I don't think Davo is the guy they wanted. I think Ernst Tanner knew that the Philadelphia Union needed a striker with the international breaks, with watching Sergio Santos not having the healthiest of track records. So I think he went out there and signed a striker just in case Sergio got hurt, in case Corey Burke got hurt. He gets caught up a lot with Jamaica. So it's like, okay, well, we want to have another option, attacking option on the bench. Let's go out and get a striker. And they're not paying him a ton of money. But I know fans were complaining about, okay, you're paying him $253,000 to sit on the bench and not play anything, not to do anything, not make the bench. I know that bothers a lot of people, but it's not a ton of money in the grand scheme of things. And I don't think there's anything to it other than Davo isn't the guy that the Philadelphia Union wanted. They brought him here just in case of dire situations, and let's see what this guy can do. Jim Curtin, the coaching staff, they have a good look at him in practice, and they see what he does, what he doesn't do. And look, if he was tearing it up in practice, then obviously he would get his chance on the bench, and maybe he would get some game time. But that's just not happening. And signings like that happen. A GM, a sporting director, they can't hit on every single signing. And if Ernst Tanner just missed out on Andrew Wooten, Matai Horvats, and Davo, and if you want to say Marco Fabian was a hit or a miss, go for it. That's a pretty good track record comparing to the players that Ernst Tanner has brought into the club. So that's my thoughts on the whole Davo situation. I don't think there's too much to it. I think a lot of fans are looking a little bit too much into it. They want a direct answer from Jim Curtin, but for him just to say other players are ahead of him, you guys make of that of what you will. And then the other thing I want to complain about is it sucks seeing Jim not make any substitutions. I know he brought in Paxton for Daniel Gazdag, who played well in this game, but again, when you go ahead and you look and he played every single minute against Minnesota, I believe it was. He's played a lot of games this calendar season, over 50 games played. That's a lot of minutes played in those knees. Jim Curtin's now talking about that in his press conferences. So it's not just me. It's not just people on social media talking about the amount of games that Daniel Gazdag has played in the calendar season. Jim Curtin's also talking about it too. So they know how much they want to push this guy. They know how much his knees can handle before a serious injury could potentially happen. So I don't think it was, Gazdag was sucking against against Nashville. I think it was just, okay, look, he did a good job for 60 minutes going at Nashville. Let's go ahead, get him off, and have Paxton go at tired legs. And, Paxton was unfortunate not to get an assist or goal in this game against Nashville. Paxton played well, and Ali, I thought, took a beating. Jamiro Montero took a ton of beatings, and you would have liked to have seen these guys come off and just have some rest. But when you're playing 1-0, when they're pushing tall bodies forward, you want your experienced players out there, players that have been professionals for the last couple of years for a while, compared to your homegrown guys who this is their first season playing professional ball, or bringing in a player from Venezuela who's not played at this high of level. So you trust the guys that have been here for the last couple of seasons, know how to play in this formation. And it just sucks not seeing the substitutions, but I get why Jim didn't do it when you're hanging on to a narrow 1-0 victory. But anyway, I want to move on to Blunder of the Week. And like I told you guys in the intro, Blunder of the Week this week has to deal with the Seattle Sounders versus Sporting Kansas City game. And Blunder of the Week this week is going to go to pro refs. And I feel like every week we could give Blunder of the Week to pro refs, because we know the officiating is terrible in MLS. We know it's bad in USL. It doesn't matter. The whole referee governing body in America is terrible. And last week, I could have given it to the referee for disallowing the goal that Pittsburgh Riverhounds were awarded because of the own goal that Miami scored. But I decided not to give them Blunder of the Week. I gave it to FIFA instead. But what happened in the Seattle Sounders versus Sporting Kansas City game, I was like, this is just way too good not to give it as Blunder of the Week. Now, that whole Pittsburgh Riverhounds versus Miami USL game, that was probably, not probably, it is definitely worse than what happened in the Seattle Sporting Kansas City game. But regardless, this is still terrible from what happened in this game. So if you guys haven't seen it on social media, I'll leave a link in the show description for you guys to go ahead and watch. But anyway, Seattle Sounders posted a video on Twitter of Sporting Kansas City's goalkeeper Tim Melia basically suplexing Christian Roldan to the ground inside of the goal. Melia punches the ball to try to clear it. It was a weak clearance that fell to Joao Paulo, and tries to head the ball into the net. Christian Roldan is backing into Melia, trying to obstruct him. Melia makes a save, but after he makes a save, he suplexes Roldan to the ground. Melia and Roldan both got yellows. but Melia should have seen a red card due to this violent conduct. And after the game, pro ref said afterwards, Tim Melia did not rise to violent conduct due to the lack of brutality. Did not rise to violent conduct due to the lack of brutality. Tim Melia legit picked this guy up. He picked up Christian Roldan and threw him to the ground. If that is not violent conduct, then I don't know what is. Like, I get it. Christian Roldan tried to block Tim Melia from making the save and punching the ball out. But to pick up Christian Roldan and suplex him into the ground and only get a yellow card for that? Bro, refs are terrible, man. And I mean, we know this, right? I just seeing that video, I couldn't believe that wasn't given as a red card. I mean, that's as clear and obvious as they come. And I'm sure Tim Melia will have a suspension handed out to him sometime this week by MLS. But if he isn't, then maybe MLS should also get Blunder of the Week next episode if they don't give Tim Melia a suspension for suplexing Christian Roldan to the ground. But if you guys aren't listening to the podcast, go ahead and listen to the podcast at The Free Kick. Go ahead. You can find it wherever you get your podcast. Check out the website, thefreekickpodcast.com. If you guys aren't following the podcast on social media, follow at Free Kick Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And I know I completely did that out of order from what I normally do. But look, I think I got everything covered there. But hopefully, I can give you guys a preview of either Cincinnati or Toronto. Probably Cincinnati, because the guys at Cincinnati Soccer Talk are always a blast to talk to, and they're very, very insightful. And I know not a lot has changed since I last had them onto the show with the way that things have been going for Cincinnati. But yeah, I would love to talk to the guys about that last-second loss that Cincinnati had against the Chicago Fire. But look, that game's not until next Sunday. The next game is Toronto. So if I don't give you guys a preview episode for Toronto, I would definitely give an episode review of that Toronto game. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.